everybody. Welcome to Our Watch. I am Tim Thompson and excited to be on the program with you today. Got a lot of great information for you and a really, really special guest. Before we get into that, just want to thank you for joining us today. If you're new to the channel, please be sure to subscribe and follow us on Rumble, YouTube, like us on Facebook, and like us on, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, all those different areas, wherever you're watching us today. Love to have you follow us. Also, if you like today's show, please share this out with your friends, your family, your neighbors. Important stuff. Today, on the show today, our guest is Jacob Wells. He is the founder and the CFO of Give, Send, Go, which I know many of you are familiar with Give, Send, Go. I would say maybe a few of you don't know, and for those of you that don't know about Give, Send, Go, take a look at this quick video about their organization. Jacob Wells, want to welcome you to Our Watch today. Thank you for joining us.
It's great to be here. Glad to be here.
Yeah, really appreciate the work that Give, Send, Go does, and you guys have been involved in helping so many people, all the way across the world, really 80 countries at this point, and you guys you have a prayer team that calls campaigns, you pray with them. Incredible stuff you guys are doing.
Yes, it's pretty amazing to see where we've come since we began 8 years ago. It's been an amazing God journey, and we're excited about what the future holds.
Well, talk to us a little bit about some of the things that are going on recently. I know the Anti-Defamation League, the ADL, they put out an article recently about you guys and pushing this to congressmen, congresswomen to write a letter to Janet Yellen to get Give, Send, Go off of financial systems. One of the things I know they've been saying about you is that Give, Send, Go is singularly important platform of the extremist fundraising ecosystem. I mean, this is laughable what they're saying, but of the 324 campaigns tracked by the Center on Extremism, 230 were hosted on Give, Send, Go. On that site alone, extremists and bigots have raised at least $5.4 million, accounting for more than 86% of the funds tracked in this report. It is particularly favored by extremists for its stance against what it calls, quote unquote, censorship. Despite its official policies prohibiting campaigns that promote hate, violence, racial discrimination, or the financial exploitation of a crime, extremists and conspiracy theorists have flocked to Give, Send, Go because of its lax moderation practice. What do you say about that?
We actually challenged the writer of that article to show us these campaigns. It's like, are you saying the extremists are the people that are raising money for legal expenses? Because typically we have this foundation in our country that's people are presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law, not public opinion, not what people think about them. In that it's not just the wealthy that are afforded private defenses, a legal private defense, and the best defense. It actually used to be a very liberal idea to allow everybody equality access to our justice system. And so that's all that Give, Send, Go is doing. And they didn't respond to our questioning of what campaigns that they're referring to, because most of them happen to be legal defense funds for people being accused of stuff. And that happens every single day. And we say, listen, in our Constitution, you've got due process, you've got all of these rights that are afforded to you, and they needed to be upheld. You should be questioning the other side the other platforms that are saying, hey, we don't want to give you due process anymore. We don't want you to have the presumption of innocence. We want to strip you of these rights. And that's who you should be questioning. That's what we pushed back. That's what we're going to continue to push back. We believe that the best way to move forward as a society is to uphold our justice system, because it's the best place to see justice served. And by putting the onus back on our justice system, let people get a fair shake, let them have a strong defense. I said this recently in a interview that I did. Right now, social media platforms, they really blow up narratives. They have the potential to make things go viral. And so ideas and talking points can really be blown up very big. And it makes it that much more important for people that are in a difficult legal situation to have the most rigorous defense possible, because narratives that are completely untrue and not checked can run wild on social media. So you need to have platforms that allow people to raise funds for legal defenses. So they couldn't point to any campaigns that were actively promoting hate or any of the things that they talked about. There was primary legal defense funds, which we say are completely acceptable on Give, Send, Go, and are a fabric to who we are as Americans.
Right. And, you talk about pushing a certain type of a narrative, and you have to put things in check before they get out of control. One of the narratives they're trying to push is that Give, Send, Go founders have expressed tolerance of extremism on their platform, even saying they would allow the Ku Klux Klan to use their platform as long as it was legal. Can you give us some context there so that way people know the truth behind this?
Yeah, so we were asked to speak before Parliament up in Canada last year around the trucker convoy. Some of your listeners might be aware of that situation where truckers converged on Ottawa. But in the context of that moment, you had a bunch of parliamentarians, MPs, that were looking to get gotcha questions, that were throwing out actually lots of untruths in their statements. They actually misrepresented a whole lot of different things. And I'll tell you, the foundation of Give, Send, Go is, and this is our mission statement, is to share the hope of Jesus through crowdfunding. That's what our mission statement here is at Give, Send, Go. You ask anyone that works out of our employees and people here what our mission statement is. We all know it. We all practice it as best we can. And in the context of what was being asked, we're like, we want the opportunity to reach, to share the hope of Jesus to as many people as possible. It doesn't matter who it is. If a member of the Ku Klux Klan happened to get hit by a drunk driver in their car and their community wants to start raising funds for their medical bills, we're going to allow it, and we're going to pray with them just like we pray with all campaign owners. We're not going to discriminate against people because of an association that they may or may not have. That's not what we do in society. And just like a grocery store isn't going to tell you, hey, you know what, I think that you're a part of this, so you can't come buy pasta, from our grocery aisle. And that's the context. We're not actively supporting, we're not seeing, those types of things anyways. And we cross those bridges as they come when difficult campaigns, because there are extreme views in society. But our default position has been, we want to share hope with people. The best way to share hope with people is not to censor them. That just breeds more extremism. When you shut people off access to systems, it actually just makes them more extreme. And that's what I think we've been seeing in society over the past decade, is a rise in extreme ideas, because people are being shut off. Their voices are being shut off. That dialogue that needs to take place in society isn't happening to rub those extreme edges off. And so we default to freedom. If it's legal, we default to the law. Like, what does the law say about this? Is it legal what's being done? And that's where we define things at this moment. And it's a journey for us as well, just navigating some of the tension there.
You bring up the Canadian truckers. I know most of my audience is aware of that. We were covering that as that was going on. Right now, there's a Canadian class action lawsuit, $400 million lawsuit, because of the Canadian trucker convoy. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, it's more of a recent development for Give, Send, Go. Shortly after the convoy had made its way to Ottawa and got there had been a fundraising effort. was initially on GoFundMe. GoFundMe shut it down, wanted to take all the money and give it to other people. And there was an uproar about that. The convoy organizers switched to Give, Send, Go. They had a fundraiser on our platform. We looked at what was going on, what their stated mission and purpose was for that fundraiser. And it was all well within the legal, what the law allows for. It was actually a nonprofit organization that had been sanctioned by the state up there in Canada. And we said, of course, you can fundraise for a humanitarian effort for people that have been displaced because of vaccine mandates. And we allowed it to continue. Well, that pile of money, people donating to that grew real quickly. And you know what happens when big piles of money start to show up in political causes? You get lawyers oftentimes that just jump on opportunities. And I think that's what happened is happening up there. You had a lawyer that saw an opportunity there to find some aggrieved people that said the truckers made their lives miserable for a couple of weeks with the honking of their horns and stuff like that. And so then they went after trying to sue everybody that was involved in any way, shape, or form to what happened. What's interesting is that this attorney in this class action suit initially Give, Send, Go, and we weren't on it. But just recently, over in the past couple of months, the court gave them leave to amend it and add us to the lawsuit, which is an interesting turn of events. They're not adding GoFundMe. They're not adding any of the other payment players in the process that were involved, it just shows the political nature of what's going on. So we're getting ramped up. We're getting prepared to fight this thing. We're going to be very active in going after it. We believe in the right to protest. If you don't have the right to protest, you're not a democracy anymore. As much as Canada wants to tout themselves as a bastion of freedom, their willingness to clamp down on peaceful protesters shows just the opposite. And this attempt in this lawsuit is just another attempt to stifle that freedom of expression. Right. And it's crumbling what once was a country that did stand for freedom. And so we're involved in that. We're embroiled in the middle of it. We're going to see how it plays out over the next coming months and years. We've got some great legal tactics involved in some campaigns that we're going to promote around it. But the bottom line for us is we trust God in the situation, and that he's going to go before us in the midst of whatever challenges come as a result of this.
Well, I appreciate that you're trusting in God like that and being a source of hope for so many people. One of those people is a young man named Daniel Penny. Now, he's a 24-year-old man. He's a college student. He's a decorated Marine Corps veteran. He's facing now criminal investigation stemming from him protecting individuals on a New York City subway train from an assailant who later died. And can you talk to us, because you guys were involved in helping him out? What's going on with that?
Yeah, well, I mean, many of you may have seen this just incredible outpouring of support. You had presidential candidates, Ron DeSantis and Vivek Ramaswamy, a whole bunch of different people supporting this campaign, sharing this campaign to raise funds for this young military veteran who has honorably served our country and found himself in a difficult situation. I don't think anyone sits here and says, "Oh yes, this is great, somebody died." I think people are it was an unfortunate circumstance, and the attorneys representing Daniel recognized Give, Send, Go as a platform, one that's efficient, that's cost effective, but also is willing to allow legal defense funds. Right from the beginning, we saw narratives being spun that were attempting to paint Daniel as somebody that was just very different than everything that's been seen and shown about him on any social platform or any history that he's ever had. And actually just, I think in the past day, he recently spoke out. He was extremely thankful for the Give, Send, Go that's now raised almost $3 million for his legal defense fund. Both, obviously there's criminal charges, but oftentimes in these situations, there's civil charges that get brought by family later on. So he's got a great opportunity there with these funds to be able to defend against some of that, but also challenging the narrative. Like I said earlier in the conversation, in social media, people pick up on certain things that aren't necessarily true and they spread rapidly. And one of those narratives that he pushed back hard on recently in his interview was This whole 15-minute, there was this article that came out early on that said he chokeholded him for 15 minutes, and that was nobody deserves to be chokehold, for 15 minutes. And the facts are starting to come out. It was less than 5 minutes. Like, this was a very quick ordeal, and it's unfortunate the outcome, but it's not what the media painted. And we say, this is why it's so important to have such rigorous an opportunity to such a rigorous defense, is to actually get to these facts and actually pull back the layers. And if you're stuck with an overworked, defense attorney that's being paid for by the state because you can't afford anything else, you're not in a good position. So these moments, platforms like Give, Send, Go that are standing for freedom, standing for these fundamental ideas in America's society, innocent till proven guilty, they're so integral to the rule of law and seeing order continue to go forth in our country. And we're going to continue to stand for it. And we're glad that people can avail themselves on our platform for moments like this. And let the judge, let the jury, let them figure out what the truth is in these matters.
Yeah, we've seen that being played out over and over again with certain people who Give, Send, Go has been, instrumental in making sure that they have these legal defense funds. Kyle Rittenhouse being one of them. Look at the all that went on with that, and so many people tuned in, so many people interested in what the outcome of that would be. And I would say if Give, Send, Go wasn't allowed to do that and what they did to help him raise those funds, we would have seen a much different outcome of that.
Yeah, I really believe that. And I've actually, there's a story that most people don't know in that Kyle Rittenhouse situation. So Kyle, somebody set up the campaign for Kyle's legal defense fund. First on all the other platforms, they shut it down. Eventually it came to Give, Send, Go, and he was able to raise a lot of money. In the background, there was a similar situation to Kyle. People don't know his name. Jake Gardner was the name of the man involved. And it was a couple months earlier to Kyle, but it was a very similar situation. It was in the midst of all of that turmoil that was happening around George Floyd and what had happened in that moment. And Jake found himself, he was a military veteran himself, a Marine, 2 tours in Iraq, had honorably discharged, owned his own bar. He was deplatformed. He found himself defending him and his patrons at a bar from an Antifa BLM mob that were coming down the street bashing in windows. And he ends up defending himself, and somebody's beating him up and choking him out from behind, and he ends up shooting the person on his back. And it fit the narrative as a black person, a white person, all of these things, and the media ran with it. And Jake Gardner was deplatformed from everything. He didn't know about Give, Send, Go, and he had no opportunity to fundraise. So it was almost the same exact thing with Kyle, but then he sees, fast forward 2 months, and Kyle's campaign finds its way to Give, Send, Go. And Jake Gardner sees, well, here's an opportunity for me to fundraise. Well, in that 2-month period of time, Jake had to go into hiding. He had to close his bar down. He had to leave the state because everyone was coming after him. And even though the prosecutors looked at the video evidence in that situation with Jake Gardner and saw clearly that there was a guy on his back choking him out, he was defending his life, the prosecutors said it's self-defense. It's clearly self-defense. We're not going to press charges. Because it was such a politically motivated and heated moment, they convened a grand jury. Like the mayor of the town or push forward, we're going to convene a grand jury on this. And then it comes to when Kyle's doing it, Jake sees an opportunity. Well, here's a platform that might allow me to fundraise. And so he sets up a Give, Send, Go. And it just so happens that 2 days after him setting up his Give, Send, Go, we're starting to get all the vitriol for allowing him to have a fundraising for his legal defense. And the grand jury comes down with their verdict on moving the trial forward. And so Jake Gardner puts a gun in his mouth and he blows his head off. He kills himself, commits suicide. So this military veteran who had honorably served our country found himself in a difficult situation being attacked, had no platforms for months, and he was left hopeless. He literally was at the end of his rope. And when the grand jury comes down, he kills himself because he was too far, too late. This is what happens when you censor and you silence people and you only allow one side of the narrative to come out. With Kyle Rittenhouse, it was a different story. The moment it happened, they found Give, Send, Go, and he was able to see the support of thousands, tens of thousands of people pouring in, not just monetarily, yes, it was a lot of money, but it was also prayers. We have a unique feature on our platform where you can send prayers and messages of support as well. But Kyle, in talking with him, he said this to us. He said, it's great to see the money aspect, but to get a phone call from GiveSendGo, to read the messages in my inbox of so many people, that's the encouragement. That gives you hope to live on another day. And Jake Gardner never got that, where Kyle did. And you can see the drastic outcome difference. Kyle was eventually found innocent in that situation, and Jake is dead because he never had that opportunity. And it's horrific. And it's one of the reasons why we said, listen, we're not going to play this game of pulling favorites. Let the law make its determinations in these matters, because life and death is in these situations, and people are driven to suicide when things like this happen. And so, we're happy to have been a platform for Kyle and for other situations that come along in the future. And we're going to continue to stand for freedom and justice in the midst of it all.
Well, I appreciate you bringing up the future. I want to ask you right now, like I said, currently 80 countries around the world. You guys are effective. You're bringing hope to people all over the world, and you've got your prayer team that prays with people. As we continue, we're going to see a continued need for a ministry. I'm calling it a ministry like yours. You are bringing hope to people's lives. So what is the future of GiveSendGo?
Oh man, it is bright. That is for sure. And we say this, our tagline at GiveSendGo is to shine brightly. That's shine brightly. That's our tag. We believe that we're called to shine brightly, and we're seeing the future of GiveSendGo as being very bright. We're growing rapidly. We've expanded our team tremendously. We're hiring employees, and you look at our competitor, GoFundMe, and they laid off 20% of their workforce just a couple months ago, along with many other big tech platforms. We're seeing our platform continue to expand. Like you said, we're in over 80 countries. People are using, I just was reading about a campaign in Ireland yesterday. They're in Japan, they're in Australia, they're in South America, they're everywhere. It's incredible. And the future for us is to continue to expand into new places and be at the ground floor, be the platform that's known first in those countries, to be the leader. This is our vision statement, is to be the global leader in personal fundraising. And we see that taking place. To continue to drive costs lower, that's in the future of GiveSendGo, and to expand our payment offerings as far as ways in which people can transfer money. So it's not just a credit card or a debit card, but that there's ACH transactions, there's cryptocurrency transactions. For GiveSendGo, it's building redundancies into everything so that we're not just deplatformed in a moment because somebody doesn't like what we're doing. So we want to build redundancies. So these are all things that our teams are working on constantly, day in and day out, and we're building, and we're just seeing a whole lot of great things happen. We're excited about the future.
Well, I'm excited about the future for you guys as well. We're going to be following what you guys do, namely with this lawsuit with the Canadian truckers. Really interested in the outcome of that, and again, what you guys are doing is just incredible. What a beautiful showing of hope for so many people. So I want to thank you for joining us today, and really wish you guys all the best in the future.
Well, Pastor Tim, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk with you and your audience.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you coming on. We'd love to have you back in the future.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, everybody. That was Jacob Wells, founder and CFO of GiveSendGo. We got all the contact information, all the ways you can connect with them on in the comment section or in all the notes for this program. So ready to have you guys join up with them. What a great way of bringing hope into people's lives. If you know anybody who's looking to raise funds like that, what a great organization to go to. That is all the time we have for today. I want to thank you for joining us. Again, if you like this message, please share this out with your friends, your family, your neighbors. Love to have them connect with us here at Our Watch. Until next time, we just wish God's favor upon your life and just wish you a tremendous amount of joy. We'll see you next time right here on Our Watch with Tim Thompson.